and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible.
So thank you again. Tonight you're going to hear 3 of the 9 candidates who are running to send Mike Lawler home from Congress. We heard from 3 of the candidates 2 weeks ago in Bedford, 3 others last week in Yorktown, and tonight we have our 3rd group of 3, and we thank them for joining us tonight. And I also want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank Dylan Pine, who's our zoologist. Bob Wilson, who's operating our microphones. You'll meet her in just a second. Our moderator, Joanne Sold, who is the chair of the Mount Pleasant Democratic Committee. Being moderator tonight. Each of the towns we've been in are our host committees. Thank the entire committee for that. I also want to thank the chair of our county party, Suzanne Berger.
I want to give thanks to our audience. This is our 3rd in the series, and each of the 3 audiences have been really excellent. All our audiences have been polite, respectful, asking good questions, clapping as appropriate or not, but come to listen and make a judgment. And that is the audience in person and on Zoom. And that's really, really important. We don't see it, unfortunately, that often as we look around, but I wanted to point that out. Thank all the audiences here. And also, I want to wish a get well soon to Brian Goodman, who has, for the last 2 sessions, operated the Zoom. He had emergency surgery the other night. He's recovering apparently well, but I want to send him good thoughts and wishes. So we are doing this, as somebody said, 3 heats in this relay. This is the 3rd heat. The next event that the Westchester County Democratic Committee is working on is on June 23rd at 7 o'clock at the Croton Free Library. All the candidates have been invited to that. We have, at last count, 6 attending. And those questions will be focused on youth and labor. It's officially sponsored by the Westchester Young Democrats. And we look forward to a substantive discussion on those 2 issues. We are going to try to limit questions to those 2 issues so that we can cover some substance and not feel on the field with that many candidates. I'm sure there'll be more forums too, but we want to thank everybody for their interest. And I look forward to speaking to all of you afterwards and share your thoughts. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you, Bruce, for doing all those activities.
It's our job, we're Democrats, that's our job. I guess words. When we get to the question part, I'm going to be going around the microphone. Speak into the microphone clearly, so you heard on the Zoom. I appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Joanne Sold. Joanne.
Go over a couple of housekeeping rules. So this evening we have with us Mike Sachs, we have Effie Phillips-Staley, middle, and Peter Chatzy. Yeah. So in terms of our housekeeping rules, we will have the candidates present opening statements for 2.5 minutes. Questions, they'll have 2 minutes to answer, and then ultimately closing statements for 2.5 minutes as well. We ask they'll be given a 30-second warning, and then a wrap up. We ask that questions that come from the audience that we start with district leaders, either from our town or any other village or town in district. As far as the questions are concerned, we ask you to be succinct, because the more succinct you are, the more opportunity we have for additional questions. Questionings will start with some prepared ones that we want all candidates to answer, and then we'll open it up to the audience. If you have a question for all candidates, then you can direct it to everyone, or if you have a particular question for a particular candidate you want answered, you can do that as well. So that's our housekeeping rules this evening. I'm going to start with the questions that have been prepared that we want each of them to answer. And I will rotate the order of who will speak as we go along. First question. Our congressional district is comprised of many diverse cities. Why don't we start with opening statements? And my apology. We'll start with Michael. Matt.
Saxon. My dad is from Hudson, got an 8-year-old and 11-year-old, and I'm running for Congress to fight for their future. Fight for our district, to fight for our democracy, to fight for everything that Mike Waller, his fellow MAGA extremists, have abandoned. Now, I think everyone running this primary can say the same thing. Truly. What I bring is an understanding of the dangerous moment that we are now in. Because I had a front row seat, quite literally, sometimes, to how we got to this. I'm not a politician, I'm a lawyer and a journalist. I covered the Supreme Court, covered Congress, 2016 campaigns, the first Trump White House. So, Citizens United to January 6th. So I have a unique perspective, a line of vision, a line of sight into how we got this. And for too long, we have failed to recognize that policymaking in this country has been oriented towards the powerful, towards the money, towards the billionaires to lock themselves into power at the people's expense, with working people falling behind. Now, this campaign is about recognizing that the people are now standing up, showing up here in this room, out the streets in Los Angeles. The No Kings protest this weekend at the town halls. This campaign is a movement to meet our moment, to recognize that we need to reorient our policymaking to the people, to have a House of Representatives that is again the people's house. Because right now it is not. We have Mike Waller casting the deciding vote to steal, quite literally steal from the people of this district, the vulnerable, their health care, their SNAP benefits, to enrich the billionaires that put him in his seat. So we cannot get out of this moment with the same old playbook, same kinds of people. We need to have someone who's able to say it like it is. We need to be able to need to have campaigns that recognize that we can't just make nice promises that give up the moment the billionaire bought system blocks us from getting what the people demand. No. We must stop at nothing to build a new house. It shows the people what we can be when we're all meant together. That's what this campaign is about. That's why I'm here to see.
Everyone, let me stand right here. My name is Effie Phillips-Staley. I am a trustee in the village of Tarrytown, just next door. I am a longtime resident of New York and New York 17th District. I raised my children here at the City Hall High. In fact, my son is graduating just next week. And I have to thank you. Appreciate that.
And I have been a nonprofit executive, working in the nonprofit sector for over 30 years, advancing equity in education, in social justice, and also through cultural institutions. So a little bit about my backstory. I grew up in a union household, a working class family who had the chance to live in a really nice middle class neighborhood in Northern California. It's where I grew up. My mother is an immigrant from El Salvador. She learned English and then taught immigrants children in public schools. And then my father is a war veteran, a civil servant, and I dedicated my life to a life of service, in large part because I learned it from them. That was the nature of our household. So, about why I am running for office right now. In truth, I don't need to tell you about what Mike Lawler is doing and what Mike Lawler is up to. I mean, I think you all know the score on that. I want to say a little about what a congressperson should do in this moment in time. And we need a congress member who really understands the system of checks and balances at the federal level and really stands up for it. That is not something that Mike Lawler is doing, as you know, and that is something that we have to defend. We have to defend Congress, we have to defend these institutions, and we need someone who's strong enough to do that fight. We need a Congress member who recognizes that the health of the American people is fundamentally the health of the nation, because our nation is, of course, made up of us. So we can't use our health as a bargaining chip to get tax breaks for the wealthy. It's that simple. We undermine our own capacity as a nation when we're selective in that way in terms of who we serve. We need a member of Congress who understands that when children go to school, they need, I'll be very quick, I'm sorry. When children go to school hungry, they don't learn. SNAP benefits are an investment in the future of our nation. We need to invest in the future of our nation. That's investing in the people, and that is why I've chosen to run, because I've dedicated my life to service, and I know that I can serve our nation in this way.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Suzanne, Joanne, Bruce, and all members of the Dems for sponsoring this event tonight. If I could do something just a little different, I would like to start by reading something that's on my website, I believe. Certainly, I've sent this out in many, many emails. If I could first ask everybody who's able, please stand up. As you hear these words, if you agree, just take a seat. Our federal government is a mess. The executive branch is running unchecked. The policies are purposefully hateful and strategically divisive. Dissent is intentionally stifled. Even our long-term allies are losing confidence in our lives. America first has led to America only. The Trump administration and lapdog Republicans are dismantling American values, destroying the social safety net, and focused on their own opportunities for power, rather than enabling the health, safety, and well-being of our citizens. Really glad. My name is Peter Chatzy, and what you just heard is the reason why I entered this race. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm a lifelong Westchester resident, except for the first 9 months when I lived in Seaford, Long Island. I don't remember Seaford at all. With my wife Susan, who's here tonight, we raised 4 kids. And for many, many years, decades actually, I've juggled 2 leadership positions. I nap instead of sleeping. It's been a long time since I've I'm CEO of a software company called Napa Group. I started it in my 20s, still going strong. 30 seconds. I was first elected mayor in 2003. I was then the youngest mayor ever elected. I've been deputy mayor for the last 7 years. All those are voluntary positions. I have been elected 5 times. In those roles, I have written more than 70 laws. I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a really good writer. They cover things like, affordable housing, alternative energy, zoning, a whole works of things. I'm so out of time. Because Briarcliff is nonpartisan, I have negotiated and won over folks from all different parts of the spectrum. Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, libertarians. I have an ability to bring people together to achieve practical solutions to problems, and I'll save the rest for your questions.
Okay, now we will actually start with the questions. First question, and we will start with Mike to begin the answers. Our congressional district is comprised of many diverse cities, towns, villages, and hamlets. Please share your ties to one or more of these communities and what you see as one or two of the most pressing issues they face.
Is it okay to start with my hometown, Croton Hudson? So I moved to Croton Hudson in 2018. I moved to Croton Hudson in 2018 from covering national. And I found it to be an amazing place to live. Down to earth river town. No animals. People want to be your neighbor. People want to care for each other's children. And I've found my own children really finding their place there. Super proud of this. Go to the dance, my happy place. The Croton Point, Croton Parks. It's beautiful. I can't say about that. And that's representative of the district itself. This is a district that is full of bounteous nature, beautiful people, all looking out for themselves and their communities and their families, their country. So you're talking about what else you see in this district and the communities that we should be reaching out to.
What do you see as one or two of the most pressing issues they face?
Affordability, right? We have families who raise their children here, and their children can't afford to live here. And that's bound up what I was saying before. How our national policy is not oriented around the people. It's not oriented around families. It's not oriented around making sure that we have life that we deserve. It's oriented on robbing Peter to pay Paul. Stealing from our backs, our labor, to make the powerful more powerful. So, prices go down after this election? No. Did healthcare become more accessible? Well, we can ask Mr. Waller. That is not the case. It's because they're serving billionaires, wealthy, and powerful. That's those rest of us just want our children to have the same lives that we had, if not better. That's an issue. It's a deep issue. Residents throughout the district, everyone I talk to. Car line and pickup line, sending out my kid's basketball team. Come over to
I just say the question. Our congressional district is comprised of many diverse cities, towns, villages, and hamlets. Please share your ties to one or more of these communities and what you see as one or two of the most pressing issues they face.
Well, we start, well, of course, I live here in this area, in Tarrytown, but I'm gonna start with Peekskill. Peekskill is truly, one of my favorite towns, cities in the area. Incredible, seriously, I mean, I see the Peekskill people here, but an extraordinary combination of artists, art making, affordability, really affordable housing for artists that create really dynamic communities that improve tourism, that make life more enjoyable. Peekskill is a great model for that. They had the $10 million grant for the Main Street to help with walkability and so many other things. It was a really wonderful use of state dollars for a town that is, to me, it's a gem, a rough gem maybe, but in the best way. So Peekskill, I was the director of a cultural institution there for some point, so I had the pleasure of getting to know it. I think Piermont is also an extraordinary gem just across the river. Another example of incredible revitalization, both for residents and also to attract tourists. And I'm drawing a blank at the name of the restaurant. It's an old, like 1940s gas station that's converted to the most charming resident, the beautiful pier. And of course, Tarrytown. I'm not going to say Tarrytown has the most, proud to be a trustee of the village, proud to be a steward of such a beautiful village with a beautiful Main Street that is always forward-moving. The challenge, I think, is universal that I'll talk about. It's fundamentally an infrastructure that needs to be rebuilt to accommodate climate change. It needs to be rebuilt for that reason, to save houses, to preserve businesses. The vision is, how do we make our villages livable with strong economies for the next 100 years? And that's going to require continued investment in infrastructure. You can't build new housing without the right infrastructure. You can't hold back monster storms without the right infrastructure. I said something we deal with at the village on the federal level and partner the federal level funds to be able to do it, because we can't float all that change on the taxes that we pay locally alone. We need the federal government's help, we need Congress's help. So thank you.
I would also just like to mention Peekskill because I like the applause. I would say that, let me talk first about times. As I said, I'm a lifelong Westchester resident. I went to high school here, I went to nursing school here, all the way up. I have lived in Briarcliff 30 years. I have deep ties to that community. I have deep ties all over Westchester. On the Rockland side, my wife is my partner in this race. My wife has served on 3 different boards, charitable boards in Rockland, including Rockland Pride, the Center for Safety and Change, which is a domestic violence shelter, and why am I spacing out? Planned Parenthood, yeah, the first one. I'm gonna forget that. She's very involved, and during COVID, she became a rape crisis counselor. So she works in Rockland hospitals, helping women through what can be the most traumatic part of their life. As I travel around all 4 counties in the district, it's hard to just pick 2 problems. I talk about 2 classes of problems: anxiety and anger. The anxiety comes from basically uncertainty, a sense of personal well-being and less direction going in the wrong direction. Trump, of course, is punitive, divisive. His policies are based on retribution. No one is adjusting to that very well. The lack of diversity of housing, soaring medical bills, utilities that are out of control, cuts to the social safety net, that's all causing anxiety on the other side. Obviously, we have a president who pretty much acts like he would say a kindergartner, accuse somebody else of that because of the name call. It's vindictive, nasty, and Lawler is no better. He has called all of us participants in the clown car. I was the last to join. I am the caboose. He blindly follows Trump's agenda, and Trump's been very effective here, right? He attacks the media, law firm, legal system, education. He's really got this down pat. I think that anger is all about America government no longer representing us, America going in the wrong direction. Again, we have to flip the House. That's That's the first step.
We'll start this time with Effie. What do you see as your path to victory in this race? What are Mike Lawler's weaknesses? How will you win over his voters from last time? And perhaps most importantly, how will you raise the necessary funds?
Sure. The most critical, this is fundamentally how I see the path. It's in part reaction to the Democratic Party's inability to really reach all constituents that it needs to. It shouldn't be that in a district that went for Biden, in a district that went for Harris, that this district went for Lawler twice in both of those races. And I would argue that it's fundamentally because the constituent services that we saw from Nita Lowey, who has such an incredible history and power of doing that. And I say this with respect, I'm afraid we just haven't seen it recently. When I speak to people about it, that is fundamentally the issue. How are we serving our constituents? How are we listening to our constituents? How are we allowing our constituents to define the needs? And then how do we advocate for them within Congress? I believe the path to victory here is about building coalitions, not just of all the wonderful people who pay attention to these matters, but by really reaching out to communities that felt that they haven't been listened to and that they checked out. I'm going to speak about the Hispanic community in particular. We do know in the last election that Hispanics tended to shift to the right. Now you see what is happening to Hispanic communities. It is catastrophic. It is shocking. And it's not just Hispanic communities that are suffering from the current policies. It's everyone, unless you're in the top 10% of the wealth bracket. We have to listen carefully to how people are suffering and develop our plans as the Democratic Party and as Democratic candidates to take care of them, to put service first. So coalition building and listening is key. Mike Lawler's weakness, he lies. And he can't hide it anymore. He could maybe hide it under the Biden administration where he could really be bipartisan because he was working with Democrats. Now he's working with Trump. He says one thing and then he votes another way. That is his weakness. He cannot hide that. But the real challenge is for us to deliver. And like I said, I have spent my entire life in service. That is why I am here. Constituent services for me, in addition to all the other things, is number one. We have to take care of our people. And doing that is also taking care of the nation. When you advocate for healthcare, here you're advocating for it for everyone. So that is my point. So thank you.
As I mentioned, I've won election 5 times. I know how to win elections. I think Democrats forever, for as long as I can remember, have always had the best ideas, the best ideals, the best policies. What happens is we're constantly playing defense. We're constantly defending these ideas. What we have to do is switch this around. We have to be on the offense. And it's actually much easier this year because all you got to do is make the Republicans be on the defense. And they have a lot to defend. They're doing a lot of things wrong. Mike Lawler, I would also make. I have a long history in governing, and I know actually how to govern. I like to say I'm progressive in that I look to make progress. I look to little progress along the way is how we hit the goal. If you swing for the fences all the time, politics tends to be governing tends to be a pendulum. All you're doing is setting up the next administration to push back in the other direction. If you put in incremental changes forward and forward, you're much likely to be more successful. I also think it's really important to demonstrate that through experience, I know how not to be wasteful in government. I think the most important resource, it's not this Doge crap, it's not where we spending money, it's where we spending time. Because in governing, and especially in Congress, you only get 2 quick years in a term, which is by the way the terms are 2 quick years. You have to really focus on what's important and ignore the noise. Mike Lawler, I don't know if people know this, he co-sponsored Marjorie Taylor Greene's act to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. It's just the perfect example of a complete waste of time. Why is the federal government even looking? I can name 5 more legislative bills he has been involved in that he should not have anything to do. I will try to convince my fellow congresspeople that we need to concentrate on what's important, use the time wisely, and move America back.
Republicans are in power. They hurt people, they tank the economy, then they distort or perhaps even try to destroy our democracy to preserve their power, because hurting people and tanking the economy is unpopular. Mike Lawler right now is part of a governing coalition doing all of those things. So, seems strong and unbeatable in the past couple of elections because he was part of an opposition where he could pretend to be moderate up here while voting MAGA down there. As he was saying, you cannot do that anymore. He was the deciding vote for that cruel and ugly bill. He's not going to forget that. We won't let him forget that. On top of that, lies, as Peter was saying, no one's punched back. Told the people he's talking to, he thinks you're stupid. We don't like people that they're stupid. All does that every day. You need a candidate to able to articulate it clearly, repeatedly, on his turf. So the people that he has been hurting gave him a chance last election cycle, we don't know why. But perhaps because I don't know. People thought he was moderate. Bringing back the book excesses of the Harris administration. I don't know why people went for Lawler when we went for Harris. But they said it's a split ticket thing. People are not be hurt. They're gonna be mad. There's a reason why there are now 7 and potentially 9 of us. We know that we can take all of that. But it's about not picking the person that you think has a message. To ride that wave, go into the house with a vision. So with all due respect, you know, the incrementality, I'm seeing the house in the one chamber of the one branch of the federal government that Democrats, both big D and small d, can control. You can put forward a vision, big contract with America, but not stupid and evil. So that we can inspire using the house as a platform, the people's house as a platform, to inspire the rest of the country of what we can be when we're all in together. And have those policy visions. The alternative to MAGA, oversight, aggressive oversight, criminality and corruption of this past 2 years old. Use that to inspire our country forward, to win the White House, to win this thing. Stop at nothing. Short policy preferences of the people in it. That's what they do. And appeal to the political peril of the movements. Let's think about that here to talk about.
So we want one additional question tonight based on what's happened in time. So when Democrats criticize President Trump for mobilizing federal troops against immigration protesters in Los Angeles, it looks to many like they are condoning violence. What can Democrats do to change the public perception and narrative while defending protesters' rights to free speech? And we will start with you.
This country needs to get back to following the Constitution. It's a ridiculous conversation that people don't have the right to peaceful protest. I don't even know where to begin. Trump has just systematically taken away rights little by little by little, and he has a game plan, right? So, as I mentioned before, he's going after the media first, and he went after the legal system and the very law firms that people hire to represent themselves, and he went after education. Now he's attacking any dissenting voice. And just today, in testimony in front of Congress, the most senior person at the Pentagon went on record and said they may not follow a lawful court order to not send in military on US. It's where we are is where we never should have been. And I think it all comes back to following the Constitution. We have a right to do it.
What we are seeing this president do and this administration do in this respect to the military is absolutely appalling. And there is really only one response, in my opinion, and that is to exercise the rights and to do it publicly. It is not a time to be silent. It is not a time to sit back and just wait for it to pass. We absolutely, I think it was Andrew Stewart Cousins who said that democracy is a verb. It's not a noun, it is a verb, and we absolutely have to practice it. So yes, there's a perception perhaps in the media that protesters are being violent. But when you're out, you know that that is not the case. An aspect of knowing the truth is being present in the truth. And he will push as hard as he can, we know this. We know that he's going to do it. We simply have to be present, practicing our constitutional rights and standing up to this complete attempt to take down all of our institutions, and that is the only way we're going to preserve them. We have to practice it, running for office, voting, being here within this forum, being present, questioning what you see online, and we have to be out on the streets. I think that is fundamentally what is required of each of us now.
Trump manufactured a crisis thinking that he would win the political fight because he's attacking the vulnerable and thinks that we're looking to hate the people he hates. He manufactured a crisis to trigger a state of emergency that could spread beyond California to the other blue states he seeks to punish, including New York. Not just to get the vulnerable, but because he overreaches every time to perhaps protect his own political power. 2026 elections, it can be alarmist to you, but every accusation of these people is a confession. And they know that what they're doing is unpopular. And do you think Trump has any interest in losing any control while he's in office? Do you think he has any interest in losing any allies whatsoever in Congress when they're all backing his unpopular policies? We forget that when he's in power, people don't like him. When Republicans are in power, they get thrown out from this overreach. Saw it in 2018. Saw it in 2020. They tried to manufacture, and by the way, similar crises in denying COVID, with Black Lives Matter protests, with the George Floyd groups. I covered those protests. People were worried, oh, people marching through the streets in the height of early COVID. They're gonna look at the police car they burned. I was standing doing a live stand-up right in front of a burned police car. That was bad. We said that was bad on him. But what the people saw, they saw through the lens. They saw people getting hurt. They saw an administration overreaching. And right now, this administration is taking all the guardrails off. making a political bet that should they divide the courts. That's bad. I can talk about that. Should they divide the courts, they will win in politics. If they don't win in politics, well, they will declare a state of emergency to keep themselves in power. And we need to have our eyes open for that. And one of the reasons why this campaign exists, because should we hold the House? That's where we have oversight. That's where we use the platform to tell people to pay attention. Do not let these people bring down the Democratic curtain on our country and rob us of our voices. So yes, stand up for our constitutional rights, stand against this anti-constitutional regime, and have a House that pumps that out to the public, takes our power back.
Open up questions to the audience, and we're going to be focusing first on district leaders. Bruce will come around.
Thank you. I'll come around when I see your hands as a judge here first. We didn't mention it before. I want to say that this whole thing is being recorded. Zoom and will be published probably sometime next week. All three of the forums, that is. All right, Jonathan.
Touched on this a bit in an earlier question. The polling indicates that the Republicans and Trump are not doing so well on the economy, but one of their strongest issues is immigration, which they try to tie up with crime. How do you respond to that in an effective way to prove what a diversionary lie is?
We're going to start with Michael.
Oh, he is descending in the polls on immigration. Pull one up right here. He's overstepping. He's got to keep overstepping because they don't think they have to respond to people, and they think that well, they don't care how their polls are, because this is fundamental to Trump's identity, fundamental to those who struggle. They win by scapegoating immigration. They win by going after people that are poor. At least they win with a map. Empower people to see it. Pierces that information silo. MAGA cultists stay MAGA cultists, but the people who will be hurt and did not ask for this, but they voted for Trump for a change, they see it. Polls are reflecting that. Sinking. I get fired up. I'm sorry.
I mean, I was gonna say, this is an issue that's close to my heart, but I think it's close to everybody's heart right now, because we understand that Trump blew up a bipartisan bill under the Biden administration to get, to have a strong border policy and a strong immigration policy. We need these things as a nation. We absolutely need them. There is an issue at the border. There are issues with immigration. But Trump fundamentally needed that bill to fail so he can vilify an entire class of people. And now we're seeing that play out in the streets. People have had it. I don't know what to say about the polls, but I cannot imagine that we are seeing what we're seeing in the streets with people absolutely having it, with the degree to which he's using Hispanic people to undermine our judicial process, to undermine our legal processes, to actually take people who are doing what they're supposed to do, go to their hearings, go to their asylum hearings, and get them before they even go in the door. And I'll say, today, Stefanik was especially appalling when she attacked the governor around sanctuary cities, because her only argument was to equate all immigrants with these criminals that she was putting up on the screen. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like Trump calling Mexicans criminals and rapists, right? I believe very strongly, and it is a key thing, we have to get our immigration policy back under control in Congress, not only because it's necessary for our nation, but we cannot allow Hispanics, now it's not just, it's anyone, because there's an immense amount of racial profiling right We cannot allow an entire class of people to be vilified, to be put in danger, so that this man can continue to grab power.
Course, a nation of immigrants. It's a laughable notion to say the game is over, nobody else can come here. That's not how the world works. We need to embrace immigration. We need to, as Democrats, push for a full solution to immigration. Can the borders be tightened up? Sure. Why not also add to immigration courts so immigrants who want to come to this country can have an easier process to go through? It shouldn't require that you wait a year, 2 years, 3 years to get permission. You should be vetted. You should be allowed in if you have a lawful path to get in here. It's also curious that Trump comes out and says all immigrants are horrible. They're all rapists. By the way, hotel workers, those are immigrants are okay. I mean, his policies only serve him. And we have to get back, by the way, not just immigration, all laws should be focused on data, on real data, solving real problems. Immigrants, in truth, commit far fewer crimes than Americans commit against Americans. But every immigrant violent act is magnified 1,000 times by media, by the Republican Party. We got to get back to reality. Reality is based in data and what science used to be in this country. Real, provable data and laws should work.
To know if one of you does have the opportunity of getting this, how are you going to bring the Hasidim from Rockland County to your side as opposed to Mike Lawler's side? Because evidently they were the people that took him over the finish line.
Okay,
Your turn.
Coming from Briarcliff, I love this question. As I don't know if everyone in the room is familiar with this, but Pace University was in Briarcliff. The Hasidic group bought the campus to use it for a yeshiva. It was a fire sale, it was very cheap. They jumped on the opportunity to buy property. We have rezoned wide in Briarcliff. We've redone a lot of zoning, including that property, because the goal in the comprehensive plan, and for those of you who know about municipal government, all your laws have to tie back to the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan said that property should be residential, so we had made it residential. They came in, they want to be used for constitutional use. We pushed back. It rose to the level of a threatened federal lawsuit using our loop, which is a religious land use for religious use. The answer to your question is that I personally negotiated with a Hasidic group and their lawyers, and their lawyers were tough. Their lawyers included Al Pirovitz. You want to talk about it? And this will come out in the next month or two as the deal is released publicly. I'm not going to go into specifics. I will tell you, both sides are walking away from this deal thrilled. And I expect that I'll be able to get members of the Hasidic community as a record that I'm fair, that I'm ethical, that I'm creative, that I came up with a solution that works for everybody. And I think that's the kind of leadership we need in Congress.
I think there's a perception that, and it is true, but it wasn't just the city that took Lawler over the finish line. It was a lot of people who were very unsatisfied with the Democratic Party. And we can't forget about that. So to me, the fundamental thing is back to what I said before, listening carefully to what the needs are of all constituents, including the Hasidim. Now, I think in particular, when we think about Medicaid, for example, 28% people with health insurance in Rockland County are on Medicaid. A lot of them are single families. That is 28% as compared to 10% in Westchester County. We have to provide the same kinds of services that allow people to thrive to everyone. And that will continue to be made apparent to the city through conversations, through discussions of what their needs are. Just as we'll talk to the Haitian communities, just as we'll talk to the Hispanic communities, just as we'll talk to working class people and to unions. That is the fundamental job of a congressperson. That is what Nita Lowey, again, excelled at immensely, and she is the model for how to get that done. It's being a people-centered elected official who really understands the needs and works really hard to do it. That is my take.
I think that you got it right. You meet people where they are. You understand that you can win this district, not only by meeting people where they are, but also making sure that you get every vote. Austin and two round. You take no one for granted. That you treat no coalition as out of touch. And you respond to their needs, respond to their immediate interests, respond where they're getting hurt. As we noted, a lot of people in the city community are getting hurt right now because of all those choices. You will have a record we can run against, a record we can show people he is not working for you. Meet people where they are, hear them out, and get their votes won. Most we can do is hear people, meet them where they are. Connect how they're being hurt, the person they thought they trusted.
My name's Peter. My wife and I adopted our daughter in Guatemala City through all the legal processes. She's a U.S. citizen. And I'm really afraid that when she's on her college campus or in Yorktown or visiting her boyfriend in Queens, she's going to be snatched up off the street because she doesn't know that. Can you talk about the path for legal citizenship for people who are undocumented that live in this district, who work hard, pay their taxes, send their kids to school, fill the churches, and otherwise obey laws?
We'll start with Effie.
Thank you for asking that question. To me, again, in Congress, it is absolutely essential for many reasons to make sure we have fair immigration policy put into place that takes into account amnesty, which is an American tradition that goes back so far. When you think of all of our origin stories, amnesty has been a critical part of that. People come to this country for by choice, or people come because they flee here. My mother came here from El Salvador because she met my father, and they got married. A wonderful reason. Cousins came here because they were fleeing civil war. They came here undocumented, but during the Reagan administration, they granted amnesty. These are the kinds of people-centered, compassionate policies that we have to have put in place. It is very scary right now because this government does not care about people, does not care about their dignity, does not care about their safety. So that is obviously one of the many reasons why we have to flip the House and put in a congressperson who will fight with the majority to put people first again. But speaking to the issue of your daughter, I just want to, as she is obviously adopted an American citizen and that sort of thing. I will say broadly, there are two reasons to increase the number of immigrants who are able to come here legally. One is, of course, the tradition of amnesty, because we offer that. This nation is built on people who came to this country under these conditions. And two, when you look, for example, at manufacturing jobs, there's a deficit of, there's 500,000 unfilled positions in manufacturing in this country right now. We need immigrants. It's good for our economy, and it's good for our nation, and it's the kind of thing that we need to build a pathway for people to enter for themselves and for our nation.
First, I just want to acknowledge how you're an example of humanity, and I think our job at the end of the day is to make life better for somebody or many people. And so that's a perfect thing. I think the path to make this easier is to recognize A, that humanity, which is important, and B, that America should be embracing all sorts of people, ones that are here already. Think of how disruptive this would be to say, go leave here, go join some world, some life you know nothing about, maybe you have nobody to be with there. It is cruel. I think putting a path in place is something we can all sit down as civilized human beings and come up with something that works. I would give priority to people who are already here, who have connections here, who have jobs here, who have family here. The fact that Trump is trying to do away with birthright citizenship should just scare the hell out of everybody. I mean, it is really crazy. I believe, I don't know what that pecking order is. I do think though that we could come up with some way where we take the people who would be most impacted, whether they are here already or whether they are fleeing some horrible other place and seeking asylum. Maybe the third order is people who just decide they want to be in America, right? Maybe that's the pecking order. I don't know what it is, but I do think we have to come up with this.
No, it's not late. Sorry. It's awful late. No parent should ever do that. That's where we are right now in this country. So, yes, that's what they said. I think everyone running in this race will be for comprehensive immigration reform that's humane. Make sure no parent can be an adopted citizen or an undocumented person with a child who's born here who's having their citizenship revoked by executive order, deeply unconstitutional. We all agree. So I'm going to talk a little about structural stuff. We mentioned the comprehensive immigration. We would be in a different place right now had there not been a Senate filibuster in 2013. Oh, a bill that had majorities in both houses and a president ready to sign it. But instead there was a minority that stopped the people's will from fixing this system. So we talk about saying that I had a front row seat to all this stuff. And the vision to go into the House and deliver for the people. This is it. Stop at nothing to get popular laws passed, like comprehensive immigration reform. That requires getting the House. But we won't be able to pass it when we have the House. We won't have a White House. Definitely won't have the, likely won't have the Senate, barring a cabinet. Hopefully we won't have the cabinet. But then we have to get the White House. We have to get the Senate. But even if we have 51, 52, 53 votes, will we be able to pass comprehensive immigration reform? No. Why? Filibuster. What the Republicans know that the filibuster protects them from their policies. They can feed the base with abortion bans and stripping birthright citizenship. But they know that when they pass those policies, they will get thrown out of the stuff that's unpopular. They know that when they filibuster popular Democratic policies that people like, people blame Democrats if we don't deliver. But if we had the will to get all the way to the finish line, pass popular laws. They are repealed at the peril of political opponents. We will break that freedom. This anti-immigrant freedom that we need. And the Supreme Court decided to make something up, say it's unconstitutional, which they might do with DACA, which, comment by the board. It's coming up, of course. We have to figure out what to do about that too. It starts in that house, the people's house. That's how we get to these things we're all talking about. People want it. Stop it, nothing to it.
Okay, I have an email one to do, a question from an email. This is the question. I used to receive health insurance through my father's employer. After he passed away, we were fortunate that his employer extended the coverage to my mother and me for a while, which gave us time to figure things out. When my mother became eligible for Medicare, she transitioned over, but that left me without coverage. Since then, I've been working on and off in temporary jobs that don't offer health benefits. Because of that, I enrolled in Medicaid through New York State. But now with the threats of cuts and tighter eligibility requirements, I don't know if I'll still qualify once my temporary job ends. Just this past week, I had an emergency appendectomy. Without Medicaid, that surgery would have wiped out my savings or worse. How are you going to fight for people like me who need access to life-saving care while my elected representative is doing everything in his power to take that care away? And we'll start with Mike.
That person watching on Zoom, or did that come in before?
They're on Zoom.
I'm sorry, they have to deal with that. You have a representative who doesn't stand for you. It's making you choose between paying your heating bill and getting your health care. I'm sorry. So we have a president that's too busy trying to make himself more powerful and play to those who bought his office and helping people who need the benefits and the assistance of landmark popular laws that were passed in the 1960s. The Republicans have set about trying to dilute and destroy ever since. I'm sorry that there are people in this country, in states that would have Medicaid right now through the Obamacare expansion, but the US Supreme Court made it optional, so there's still 5 states that just escape the vulnerable in their states, letting people go uncovered and go bankrupt. So what I would do is use this campaign like I would govern. Again, we get the House, we still won't be able to pass laws that won't happen at least until 2028, maybe 20. We use the campaign, turn people on to these issues, and recognize what it takes structurally to get them done. And it takes the people to put these things forward. Because Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, Fair Housing Act, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, even Obamacare, popular laws, once enacted, are repealed at the peril of our political opponents. And those political opponents will do everything in their power to pull every anti-democratic lever of our Constitution to prevent the good from happening. We need to send this message out. Deliver on good, on popular, and not be afraid of making sure the public knows that we are stopping at nothing, so they don't have to trade off their heating bills for that care. This country should be able to make sure that doesn't exist ever again within our borders. We have the power to do that if we so will.
So first, I'd like to say also, I'm really sorry that this anxiety and stress is happening. Please go to my website, effieforcongress.com, or you can contact me in Tarrytown, and I'm happy to have a conversation to talk about what kind of services we can connect you to ensure that you feel secure in this moment of great insecurity? Because there are still resources in this moment within the state that exist to be helpful. We're not gonna let them just swipe it all away in one gesture and have it disappear. That's absolutely not what we're gonna allow to happen. So do please reach out to me. I will say broadly from a policy, the most important, we all know it's important to flip the house. Again, I go back to the idea of a people-centered government, a government that actually works to enable people to live their best lives, to live a healthy life, to be productive, to do as much as they can with their lives, you know, in this moment where we have it. And what that means, again, from a policy perspective, is not allowing an executive branch to put through a budget or approve a budget where you have to trade Medicaid to take it off the backs of this person who has written in to allow tax cuts for the rich. That is fundamentally what Mike Lawler has allowed, what Mike Lawler has voted for. And again, that's why we have to get back to make it a people-centered and a service-oriented government, not just for individuals, but for the nation, because the nation is us, and we have to take care of ourselves to be a great nation. Thank you.
There is so much to talk about with healthcare in our country. I think we have to start by recognizing converting everything to the dollar value of investing in good medical care. If you look at, I was in the hospital last year and surgery, actually twice, hernia, because I'm in such good shape and I do all these sit-ups. One of my surgeries cost well over $400,000. It's an unbelievable amount. And part of the reason for that expensive cost is that when people don't have medical care, they go to emergency rooms for treatment. Hospitals don't turn patients away. They don't care if you have insurance or not. They treat you. So it's more expensive for everybody. If we start looking at the cost savings of things like preventative care, nutritional counseling, pregnancy care, end-of-life care, these things look like they're expenses, they're investments. They bring down the cost of medical care for everybody. And this gets back to what I said before about data-driven legislation. I come from a world, I'm a software guy. All we deal with is data, and a lot of it's for Wall Street. All Wall Street cares about is data and looking for chances to better use that data. Government has to use data better. We have to stop shying away from things because they sound complicated when we have the data to realize these are solid investments and they're good for the entire. When you're passing 1,100-page bills at 2 or 3 in the morning, that nobody is noticing that there is language in there that takes away a broker's fees for providing counseling to small groups of insurance or individuals. Brokers no longer have any, or won't if it's made into law, will no longer have an incentive to explain insurance programs to individuals, small groups, because they're no longer getting commissions buried in that bill. We need to fix things like that. We need to do a better job taking care of each other, because that will take care of our country.
I think we have time for one more question and closing remarks. I saw your hand before. Okay.
I appreciate your passion and dedication to serving the population that's so clear. And so we're sort of in, to some respect, in homogenous group. We're all dedicated Democrats, and we pretty much agree with each other and everything you're saying. If you were talking with a mixed group, as you would at some point, if you should win the primary, how do you, and this is more of a thought question than a specific policy question, but how do you break through when you're talking with an individual or a group of individuals whose reality is so different than our reality, because we really are a nation with 2 split realities.
people who get their news from Fox News, people who are fed by the algorithm that agrees with what they already think, and they are so dug in. Like, how do you break the ice and connect with another person as a human and persuade?
So, that was loud, sorry. This is a really essential question. It has to do with what kind of world we live in the world of a news cycle of looking at a small screen, and in our reality, here in the actual world. I think we're reaching a point because of how catastrophic this current administration's policies are, that reality is going to be very, right? We're not going to be able to escape the affordability issues. Already, we have a major housing crisis where far too many people pay more than 50% of their income towards their housing costs. That takes away from money needed for food. People are, just think of all the people who've recently been laid off at the federal government and what that looks like when you flood the job market. These are tangible things that people are experiencing, and at some point, I personally believe that the American people are independent enough in their thinking and smart enough to recognize, oh wait, things have just gotten really bad for me. It's because of these policies, all this other stuff is propaganda. But that's why the Democratic Party has to be ready for the moment. And the key of that is listening. It's listening. So I would argue that a person in an immigrant household and a person maybe in a working class union household and maybe a middle class person who, things have suddenly become a lot more expensive because they lost their job, right? They all have the same thing in common. Everybody wants to be able to thrive and to take care of their children and themselves and their families, and it's not working in this administration. It's a terrible thing to have happen. What the Democrats have to do is really rise to the occasion, really listen, base policy on what people's actual experiences are, and deliver. That is what I intend to do, to be very plain. My life of service has always been about that, and I can't wait to get started.
You're right, and I think the key to winning the general election is to win over independents. That's the largest group, that's really the swing vote, independents. I have a lifetime of experience dealing with people that don't necessarily agree with me. Because prior to, I've been involved in 20 years in local politics. Prior to being nonpartisan, I mentioned this before, my boards are often Republican, conservative, libertarian. I've dealt with all of them. What I've found is that throughout America, people tend to agree on what they're trying to do and disagree about how to get there. So when you start with the commonality that we all want to prosper, we all want to feel safe, we all want success, it's just a question of how you do that. And what I have found from running a business for almost 40 years, 38 years, I have employees who have been with me more than 20 years. It's all from listening. And it's all from understanding what are you actually trying to solve? What's the underlying motivation everybody has when they come to the table? My wife and I have 4 kids that are within 5 years of each other. We survived teenage years with sometimes 30 teenagers in our house. We were like the house that everyone came to. We had kids living with us who weren't our kids. When their parents would call and say, need a break. I can tell you as a parent, if you can deal with 30 teenagers, you can deal with people on the political spectrum that may start out the table. We're all children, just some of us are all children. End of the day, I think I have a history with many different things. Just got this.
I think this election will be different because of the way it affects people. At least a little bit 2 years old. I think those who swung for Lawler this past time, they are not dug into agriculture. be receptive, understanding how they build bridge, if they haven't already. Now, the way to build those bridges that have been so great about torn down in the past few years is to recognize the need to listen to people where they are. So yeah, you'll get fire and brimstone from your right here. But it's an issue that affects people in their communities when we're with each other. My son's the only Jewish kid on the CYO basketball team. And the CYO basketball team has some Republican parents there. Or friends. We trust each other. My older son and one of his friends whose parents are quite Republican. They, on their iPads, talk politics. They get political debates. Have a dog and pony show in 6th grade. Still go play with each other. How do we get back where we don't see the other side as a fundamental threat to Americans? That's really hard. Really hard. I think in this election, we don't even have to get to that person. I don't feel it. Some people want to blame the little guy. The woman outside. I want to see Clooney's good luck and good on Broadway. Afterwards, when people were waiting to talk to him, I went through the line and someone said, I'm good. And behind me said, I'm friends with my mom. Okay, let's talk. And she starts talking about how the scholarship kid for her son's college, and all the scholarship kids for her son's college, that's the reason why they're paying too much tuition. They're being robbed of tuition because they didn't get the scholarship. That's not the case. So how do you have that conversation? You don't have it outside with them. Well, but get that person's number, sit down and engage, hear them out. You say, maybe you look at what's going on there as opposed to down there. Maybe look at who's hurting me, rising prices that they're trying to switch. See the person's history. That's the way you can maybe build humanity. Build connection. Realize we're all in together. It's hard.
And at this point, we're going to have each of the candidates to do closing statements. They'll each have 2 minutes to share with you their final thoughts. And we will start with Effie. Thank you.
So again, my name is Effie Phillips-Staley, a trustee in the village of Tarrytown. I first ran for office because my kids were genuinely afraid of climate change. And I wanted to model for them that we could do something about it. Maybe we won't be able to change the way the planet is evolving and the weather, but here in the village of Tarrytown, we can take care of the infrastructure. We can plan in a way, in a forward-thinking way, to accommodate the future that we see coming so that we can live, again, our best lives, and that people 100 years from now know that we made the right decisions and that we prepared in the way we needed to. It's been a privilege to do that, and frankly, it's empowering. I believe that the same thing, we're at a moment now where that kind of action must happen in terms of flipping the house. And truthfully, it was about modeling it, not only for my children, but standing up in this moment when there's so much despair and standing with others is really the only way we're going to push back against the sort of terrorist administration and to be able to preserve our democracy. I want to say this, I want to thank all of you because I know you're at the front line of caring. That is why you are here. And that your participation and your questions mean a lot. I'm very proud to be here with these other 2 candidates as well. And I think that's really important because a critical thing about the Democratic Party in this moment is that we have to present to you all of the options that each of us brings so that the democratic process can play out and you can choose. I'll put forward the best, I'll continue to campaign and you'll see me do it, but I want you to know that in the end, There is one mission that we all have, and that is to defeat Mike Lawler and to I, of course, want you to choose me based on the skills that I bring and my moral compass, which our government needs in this moment, an absolute moral compass. In the end, it is your decision, and I will make this promise that whoever you choose, I'm going to give them everything, because we have to defeat this man and we have to take our country back without hesitation, and it happens here in the 17th district. I promise you that I will give it the fight of my life, because it's the fight for all of us, and we have this great potential to come together and make our nation what it really needs to be, a nation of prosperity where we all have this opportunity. I'm not going to say it, but it's not me. You can be 100% assured that I will do everything in my power alongside to make sure we succeed no matter what, because losing is not an option. So thank you all for caring. We're in this together. We're going to bring it, and we're going to take this district back.
I didn't get to plug my website. When you leave here, go check out chatskyforcongress.com. If you need to know anything in addition to that, contact me, call me, email me, whatever. I would like to hear from you. I think Congress is a mess. The country is a mess, in part because we've done such a bad job electing people. And if you compare Trump, Lawler, to the candidates you have here, and you start looking at experience, proven track record, who's a good listener, this is how I'm going to encourage you to vote. I manage people extremely well, even those that I disagree. I've won elections 5 times, so I know how to do this. I think ethics, character, dependability, these things all count. Personality, you have to have a thick skin, very thick skin, by the way. A sense of humor, I believe, is very valuable. I hope you do too. I'm going to focus on kindness, compassion. I'm going to try to end all this divisiveness. And we're going to do this by voting one candidate at a time that believes in that. I'm going to bring back sympathy and kindness, and I'm going to help everybody recognize that one America is a much better policy for us than America only.
Well, because everything Peter and Effie said, it's brilliant. You have a choice right now, 7, 8, 9. Everyone is a choice for a reason. Everyone. Whoa. Right now, you're standing at this moment where there's one party that's seeking to hold the political pendulum hostage in perpetuity to keep its donors, the most powerful, in control. While we, the people, don't have a voice. We steal our power, purse, voice, our democracy. And we need in this new house a majority that understands full scope of the danger that we are in. A full gamut that we have to run to deliver ourselves to a point where we Democrats put forward a whole slate of bold, progressive, transformative legislation, which we can and should and will do. And the people say that's too much. Well, someone can throw the bums out and start reforming. We have a swinging political pendulum. We do not have that there now. We have a Republican majority, Republican trifecta, that's dedicated to holding the political pendulum hostage no matter what. We need to vanquish that to get back to the place where we are not looking at each other as enemies, but where we're all meant together in democratic discourse dialogue, where we, the people, rule. We're in control of our in control of our future. And we can deliver our children the future that is as we mentioned. We all want to go to the same place. All what's best for our children, best for our communities. It's how we get there. To get there, we all need to have a voice. We need a house that represents we the people. So I encourage you to go to my website, MikeSaxfordCongress.com. Check out what I'm about. Talk to me afterwards, get my card, we can talk. I love your support in our campaign. Thank you.
Zero, one more time, and all.
Well, thank you all for coming out tonight and here before the election. Once you're committed, we're going to be, all of you, we're going to take back this district. Thank you for your commitment. Good night, everyone.